generic point I want to make is, it brings me to why I'm here today. And I don't think we explained it enough, how we got to this place. Not bad guys, not everybody. It's just how we got here. And the question is, how do we get out of this? It took a long time to get here, even though it collapsed all of a sudden. The international community is still shaky. I mean, talk about bad luck. You know, just when things were going the first time around, we ended up in a circumstance all of a sudden that it looked like we had a little problem and there was a little tsunami in Japan. Slowed everything up. Or what's happened in Greece, or what happened. I mean, there's all these things, some within our control, some beyond our control. But the things within our control, we should seize and act and do something about. And I love people who say, well, that any particular solution is not going to solve the whole problem. Hey, man, if we wait for one single solution to solve the whole problem, we're all going to, you know, as Keynes said, in the long run, we'll all be dead. So we got to do what we can do now that positively can help keep this economy moving and growing. Today, the engine has to be lubricated, and that's small business. It's an engine. You know, we made a start in the Recovery Act. Last year, $50 billion in loan guarantees to small businesses. And you all know how it works, but a lot of Americans don't know how it works. You go to the bank and you say, look, the SBA will guarantee 70, 80, 90, depending on the circumstance, % of the loan. So bank, lend them the money. The federal government, the American people put their dollars behind it. So if they were to default, the bank takes a hit, but doesn't take the whole hit. But that gets things moving. And it's created, at $50 billion, hundreds of thousands of jobs. And some of them, some of those jobs you may know. Some of you may know Brian Reese. Where's Brian Reese? Is he out here? Brian, stand up. I want people to take a look at you. And by the way, if I had you running in front of me at the University of Delaware, I could have been an All-American, man. I could have been big. But Brian runs a company out in Tiffin. It's called Bulwark Potato Chips. You probably eat them. You probably know of them. And around 2000, and by the way, they started in 1920. They've been around a long time. You wanted to expand, as I understand the deal, Brian, sell more chips. So you needed to buy more trucks. You had to get new markets. And up to that point, he'd done everything right. Your outfit had done everything right. Current on the debt payments, growing company. So he went to the local bank, or I don't know which bank. I went to a bank and said, I want to expand. The bank told him that if he wanted to compete with the big guys, he's not sure they could do it. They weren't prepared to take a chance on that. I get it. Not a criticism. That's just a reality. So they went to another bank. The other banker said, I won't do them by myself, but he get SBA in the deal. Then we can put something together here. So that's what you did, right? Did I have it right, Brian? And so the end result is Brian and his company now bought more trucks, pushed his potato chip business deeper into Michigan, Indiana, hired 10 new workers, 7 of whom were unemployed before that, and now they're starting to export those white and blue bags of potato chips all around the globe, to Mexico, to South Korea. And the sky, I assume, is the limit. And congratulations, Brian, for having the nerve to do it. Thank you. So, folks, there's a lot of outfits out there like Brian's. They're still struggling, but have a game plan, have a capacity to grow. There's a lot more to do. In 2008, before the collapse, bankers lent in 2008 $700 billion to small businesses. In 2011, because of the state of the economy, the circumstance we're in, they lent $600 billion, $100 billion less. Well, that's, by the way, I'm not trying to glorify small business, okay? A lot of small businesses, these guys will tell you, don't make it. A lot of small, in good times, a lot of small businesses don't make it. But those who make it, they're the real job creators. And that's been a chance we've been willing to take. So that's why, that's where there's a role for the SBA. And that's why we're here today. That's why I'm happy to announce a partnership with our administration, private lenders, these folks over here, have agreed to do something that was a little risky. They said, look, okay, we put $100 billion in last year, banks, into small business. We'll put up $20 billion. We'll find $20 billion that we'll lend in addition to the stuff you all are going to guarantee. Some of those men and women that are here today represent Wells Fargo, TD Bank, JP Morgan Chase, SunTrust, PNC, hope I don't leave anybody out, Citizens Financial, Citigroup, Huntington, Key Corp, Regions Financial. These are big operators. And the fact that y'all were prepared to, that group, say, okay, this next year, you'll find $20 billion to lend. That's going to help further kickstart things for employment. We're here today because of those small businesses wrapped tight. And by the way, it's nice to come out of Washington and be with a lot of wrapped tight people who are, you know, I mean, it's kind of loosely wrapped sometimes where I work. You know what I mean? Or some of my friends left and right a little too tightly wrapped. So we got to loosen up a little bit here and move on. And so look, this is a company that in ordinary times would have had no trouble getting a loan to expand at a decent rate, but these are not ordinary times. They needed additional space. You heard Karen talk about it. They were looking for $1.5 million in a loan to buy this very facility and improve it. And thanks to an SBA loan guarantee, they were able to get the loan. And at a decent rate, and they began to expand. They pointed out 5 of you. I don't know which 5. Who are the 5 new hires? Raise your hand. You're kind of unhappy, aren't you? Look at those smiles. And apparently, several of you had been unemployed for a while. Well, that's important stuff. So look, you say, okay, Joe, 5 new employees at this place, 10 new employees at Ballrick. You know, Joe, 5, 10. Well, guess what? We're talking about 30 million small businesses in America. There's 30 million small businesses in America. It's just a quarter of them hire 5 to 10 people. That's where the economic growth comes. This stuff adds up. And by the way, these 5 new employees, it just doesn't benefit them. It's not, they have a spare dollar. They go buy a Coke down the road at DeBella's, or they get garlic knots or pizza at Jimmy's, you know. And by the way, Dodonna, if you think I'm just picking Italians, because I married Dominic Giacoppa's granddaughter. That's the reason I want you to know that, okay? But all kidding aside, this means those stores stay in business. Those stores hire an extra pizza delivery guy. They hire an extra person, you know, at the shop. That's how it works. It starts a virtuous cycle. Again, it's not going to happen like that. But folks, the only part of the story, this is the only part of the story how to restore the middle class. The rest of the story, I think the next step is the American Jobs Act. Now look, the 3 of us, my 2 colleagues and guys, we're ready to work with the Republicans if they have a better idea than we have about how to create jobs. The only thing we're not ready to do is do nothing. We're not prepared to take no for an answer. We're not prepared to say status quo ante. We're not prepared to say all you need to do is cut the top tax rate and somehow things are going to gloriously happen. Folks, this is about putting money in the hands of middle-class people, creating jobs for those who don't have them, and giving people a fighting chance to stay in their homes. So what do? We cut the payroll tax. For employees, your payroll tax this year is going to be cut in half. Instead of 6.2% being taken out of withholding, you know, when you get your little stub for your pay, you're going to get 3.1% taken out if we succeed. That's $1,500 pay raise off the bat. On average, that's $1,500 what it's going to mean to you all. That's like getting a pay raise of $1,500. And for the employer, we do the same thing. Instead of paying 6.2%, you're going to be paying a total of 3.1%. Now, if you have 10 employees, that's 15 grand a year. You have 20 employees, that's 30 grand. You have 60 employees, that is, you know, the list goes on. It matters. It matters. That $1,500 may be the difference between when you can pay your automobile insurance this year. Whether or not you can do things. I come from a family where there was a recession. Everybody sitting around the table, my brothers and my mom's brothers and sisters and my dad's, somebody was going to lose their job. Somebody was going to lose their job. Everybody knew it. Well, I suspect most of you come from families like that. So it matters, $1,500. And then a further incentive to get small businesses to hire and take a chance if they see they got a market out there. You hire a vet. Look, I've been in and out of Afghanistan and Iraq now over 20-some times. Seeing these kids up in these fobs getting shot at, seeing them what they've done, over 4,500 fallen angels, over 40,000 badly wounded. We send them there to fight. They shouldn't have to come home and fight and beg for a job. They should not have to do that. So we say, okay, you hire a vet, we'll give you a $9,000 tax write-off that year. And we also say if you hire someone who's been long-term unemployed, because you got to get folks there. That's when things become permanent unemployed. You hire someone off the long-term unemployment rolls, you get an enhanced tax break. You just go out and raise their wages of the people you have, you get a tax break. Because, by the way, stagnation in wages is a killer for the middle class. And so, folks, housing. You can get loans for, if you're qualified, at 6% now. 4% in terms of mortgage rate. Well, you got over 6 million people paying between 6 and 6.75%. If we just help facilitate them being able to get a loan at at 4% to refinance by waiving fees, et cetera, I won't go into the detail. That's $2,000 a year for the average homeowner. $2,000, the average homeowner going from 6% to 4%. That's money in somebody's pocket. We decided, well, we all know. I don't have to tell a manufacturing outfit like this what infrastructure means. If you're in a place where the roads are bad, the railroads don't exist, the ports are no good, and you can be in a place where they are much, much better, it impacts on productivity. Where do businesses go? What's the first thing I say to the mayor and to the local officials when someone wants to come into your plant? In and build in your area. What do they ask you about? They ask you about the roads, the schools. They ask you about the water. They ask you about the sewers. They ask you about access to rail. They ask you about access to water. Guys, I just got back from 10 days in the Far East, meeting with soon-to-be President Xi of China. He's the vice president now. These guys know it over here who travel. If I were to drop you from Mars and you've been up there for the last, in a time capsule for the last 25 years, and I brought you back and stuck you in an airport in Beijing, and then stuck you in an airport in any other major city in America, said, which one's the American airport? I guarantee you'd say Beijing. Or night and day. Night and day, the infrastructure. God, if we were raging at 10% growth, we should be investing in our infrastructure. If we were raging growth. So we talk about investing money in infrastructure, roads, highways, broadbands, airports, etc., because we have such an overwhelming deficiency. But guess what? It also creates sound, good jobs. Somebody can raise a family on, live in that neighborhood I'm talking about. Cuyahoga County alone, you have 8 bridges that are structurally deficient and no money to fix them. 8 bridges structurally deficient. Just fix those bridges. We should do that anyway. But it also creates jobs, puts money in people's hands, which they go out and spend. School renovation. 35,000 schools we can renovate with this Recovery Act. By the way, those 35,000 schools spend over $6 billion a year in heat and cool the place, which is twice the amount of money they spend on computers and books. If you just modernize the structure so they were spending $4 billion a year, you'd be able to fundamentally alter the character of the school and what they can provide their students. Teachers, cops, firefighters. I don't have to tell you to. Cleveland lost 700 teachers laid off. Tell me a competitor worldwide is laying off teachers. We can have the argument about how good or bad they are. We are in that argument. We are engaged in that. But laying off teachers, that makes sense. Nationwide. And by the way, 100 cops and firefighters in Cleveland. But that story's all across America. 280,000 teachers aren't in classrooms now. Today. There were before. 10,000 cops are not on the beat. 12,000 on the cusp to be laid off based on budget calls for this year in local communities. 10,000 firefighters.